Northamptonshire, and he now draws one of the top newspaper cartoons, Garth, in the Daily Mirror. In Lookies Tonight, he talks about his work.
And behind the comic strip in today's paper, cartoon is one of the biggest selling points of any newspaper. Now, one of the most successful cartoons is Garth in the Daily Mirror. It's drawn by an artist from Northamptonshire, Frank Bellamy. Now, today, Garth is engaged in a life-or-death struggle on a cliff top. It's the strip Frank Bellamy was drawing when we talked to him at his home in Kettering. Garth, for the uninitiated, is the ageless hero of many adventures in time and space. And this is only one of the many commissions which fill the day of one of Britain's top illustrators. Frank Bellamy has been drawing all his life, and his work is in demand all over the world, but he's never been to art school. During the heyday of British comics, Frank worked for the Eagle. Since it ceased publication, several issues have become collector's items. He's been drawing the Garth strip for the last 5 years, responsible for every drawing of each day's issue. But what sort of a challenge does it all present?
It's difficult to say what sort of challenge is. The only challenges I can really say are challenges on your inventiveness and being able to churn out the work in a given time, because for my money, a deadline is absolute religion, of course. I must stick to those things, which separates me from the weekend painter. I'm having to do a thing to a given format in a given time. Each one has its own problems, but my contribution is to present this visually, and I'd like, if possible, to present it in a different way each day, not to repeat what's happened previously or the way of presentation. In fact, keep it flowing all the time. It sounds very easy, but I can assure you it isn't at all. Accuracy is very important, because the readership of, for instance, the Daily Mirror could be between 13 and 14 million. Somewhere along the line, if I'm drawing a Western, there's someone there who's probably a buff on Western arms and ammunition and clothing. Now, I must be correct, because they always like to write in and say, you made a mistake. For instance, there's a job over there for the old Eagle. I was rather pleased with the presentation, the whole thing. It went through the editors, all the process engravers, all these various people seeing this particular work. No one noticed, other than the readers, when it happened. You'll notice I have a German infantryman there firing his rifle. There's a flash from the muzzle, but I'm afraid the bolt is up in the air instead of down. All the readers write in, spot that deliberate little mistake, which wasn't so deliberate. It was an absolute mistake on my part. It's bound to happen every now and again. I started Eagle, the famous Eagle, which I'm sure is the ultimate in children's comics, in 1957. And I spent a number of years, enjoyable years, drawing for Eagle, because it was a cut above any comics that had ever been known in this country before. This Montgomery is one of Eagle's, and from there, in later years, they approached me to see if I would draw Dan Dare. I wasn't over keen on drawing Dan Dare because I hadn't originated the characters. However, I did the drawings for a year, exactly a year, and they then wanted me to go ahead and draw a centre spread, which is in full colour, which was Heros the Spartan, which I drew for a number of years, I forget how many. He was a cross between a Greek warrior and a Roman warrior, and it was what we call sword and sorcery. It could be up to all sorts of things, mysterious islands, monsters, queer beings, all sorts of things, with this historical element running through the whole thing. It was a very adventurous story, bags of battles, lots and lots of hard work for me. Thoroughly enjoyed every minute of it. And it was an unusual type of strip on the British market that were usually science fiction, westerns, basically, school stories, police, cops and robbers. But this was a historical with a lot of fantasy, which was first class for strip cartoons. Unfortunately, Eagle, after its tremendous success, gradually did fold, and I'm afraid television took over. And here's an example when I left Eagle going in to draw Thunderbirds. And here's an example of the difference between drawing Down There, which was fiction, which seemed years ahead. We were in a scientific age, and it had caught up, and it made extra problems for me to invent, particularly in things, sequences such as this,